Welcome to Conversations About Death, an ongoing dialogue between funeral directors, hospice teams, grief support specialists, and others dedicated to helping families navigate the end-of-life journey. Today we'll be discussing why people avoid talking about death. Our guests are Sarah Breuilly, Compliance Coordinator and Community Liaison at Baldwin Brothers Funeral Home; Leena Williams, Community Outreach Advisor and Board Member for the National Alliance on Mental Illness; Lisa Bolton, Grief Counselor and founder of the Dandelion Project, a nonprofit offering grief support for the bereaved and those living with trauma; and your moderator, Nicole Medley, Pre-Need Marketing Manager at Baldwin Brothers Funeral Home. Let's get talking.
Hi everyone, thank you for being here. Today we're talking about a topic that touches us all, death. We're talking about why people avoid it and why they shouldn't. And we'd like to hear a little bit about each of you. Sarah, I know that you're very involved in the community with your history of hospice. I know that you have been through a lot of the hard stuff that people don't like to, talk about, right? That's what we're talking about.
Yep, most of my adult life I've worked very closely with death in one capacity or another. Previous to that, my first job was an EMT. And then I worked with, animals in a humane study setting and that kind of thing. So it's been a constant in my profession and something it's definitely a big part, and experienced a lot of different aspects of that and seen a lot of the different effects death have on us, and others' deaths. And
Lisa, kind of on the other side of that, I know you deal a little bit more with the aftermath and your work in grief counseling. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I created a nonprofit called the Dandelion Project after the loss of my third child to an overdose. And it was something we were going to do together to honor her brother and sister who passed before her. For me, talking about it and being out there in the community keeps their memories alive. That's usually my opener, so that they know.
Right, hey, I'm here for myself too, not just for you guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because actually talking about them is healing for me. And once they know that I'm not there just because I'm a counselor or because, I work in the field, I'm there because I'm actually one of them.
Or somebody who's going to judge them.
Right, yes. Because the worst thing you can do is close down. I've lost a cousin when we were teenagers, the grandparents. I'm lucky enough that my parents are still both here, but that's, I'm sure, coming down the line. And so I can see every angle, for lack of a better description.
Yeah, the way you just said that you're sure that that's coming. You still have your parents now, but you're sure that that's coming. Do you think that that's something a lot of people deny or won't say out loud?
Yeah.
But because you're here in the industry and you work so closely with this, you're able to say that, but most people aren't.
Yeah, I can say that to you, but when my father starts talking about his final plans, I shut him right down. I'm like, no. We're
okay, so you're still human in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to talk about that. I know you're 85 years old and I know that this is coming, but we're not going to discuss that.
Well, that was very personal. Leena, why don't you tell us a little bit about your work?
I came in as a part of a nonprofit, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, our Marion County chapter, and I was coming to Hiers-Baxley initially to have a conversation about the ways in which what they do aligned with the work that organization was doing. And I was a part of that organization because I lost my uncle when I was 16 years old to mental health related complications, and these are things that families often experience but don't always want to talk about. And coming to the people who are the final caregivers is kind of a beautiful synergy. And when I exited that conversation, I had a job offer because it did seem like being invested in the community, and funeral homes are often such an integral part of your community. It was a really nice way, I thought, to talk about the things that people don't always want to talk about, but to talk about them in a way that's celebratory. One of the things that really appealed to me is the concept of a celebration of life. And so much of what makes death difficult, at least in my experience, was thinking about all the things that the people I loved would no longer be able to participate in. It wasn't that I am sad that they died, it's that I'm sad they're not with me anymore. Right. It's up to us to keep their memories alive and to share those memories and to share those life lessons and the beautiful things that they brought to us. So.
Yeah. And it's healing.
Yeah.
It's healing when we can keep them, when we can talk about them and share the memories and share how much they meant to me or to you, and or hey, she did this, or hey, he did this, and it helps.
Probably 40, 50 years ago even, every funeral was the same.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
but depending upon the religion, but it was pretty much the same thing. But now you can really curtail them to really show who they were and really embrace the things that, you know, they stood for, they believed in, that were important to them.
So much of wanting to do a service is about finding people who you feel understand your loved one's experience and want to be able to celebrate them in the way that they would deserve and be proud of. And that's why community outreach is such an important part of my job description, is because we want families to know that we're reflective of the same values and the same community and the same organizations that they love and are proud to be a part of as their loved one was. We have a responsibility of shared experience to the people we care about in our community, and the more we can widen that network, the more opportunities for support that other people are going to find. You know, maybe they come to us initially and then they end up at the Dandelion Project because their child was lost and they are struggling with how they want to remember that, and they need a community of mothers who are also grieving, because it can give them purpose and meaning, and they can support one another and open doors for people who are going to be joining them in that struggle and on that journey. So I think that part's one of my favorites.
And I'll piggyback off of that, because one of the main things that we do try to encourage the parents is to find purpose. Whether it's volunteering with the Dandelion or going out into the community and doing stuff, that's an important part of the healing process, is to find purpose. You know, they were here and we've lost them, but it doesn't mean that they still can't do good. And we try, you know, share them, find your meaning, find your purpose. It's there. There's a, you know, I know it's a cliche, you know, everything happens for a reason. I am one of those that I hate that expression just as much as I hate the words, I'm so sorry for your loss, because it doesn't, but I do use them, but it is, there's a reason, you know, and they were here and you're still carrying on their legacy, like you said.
Why do we not like I'm so sorry for your loss?
Cliche.
I mean,
It's the
I know
easy
that when
answer.
I
It's
use it feels
I
not
always-
personal.
I always see like a death, you know, on Facebook, so and so
So
passed,
sorry, yeah.
and I love to scroll through because everybody says the same thing, you know, and it's always, I'm so sorry for your loss, my condolences, thoughts and prayers, they're in a better place, which I know really
Doesn't help.
hits the nerve. You know, I don't think we know what to say. First and foremost, like, what do you say? How do I express to you how horrible I feel about what you experienced and what you're going through? And there are no words.
There are no words.
There are no words.
Yes, that's
But then
another
that's
one, you're
becoming
right.
just as common.
Yeah, so, you know, I think that's where we all struggle. You know, even people that are in the profession or not in the profession, because I always feel like in the funeral home, it feels kind of like, we're so sorry for your loss, our condolences, you know, and it's hard to find, you know, give it its due and really give it the attention and emphasis. This is traumatic, this is horrible, and it's wrong.
Well, and in a lot of ways, I think that is like a challenge as well, because grief isn't something to be dismissed or to be overcome or to be cured, right? Grief is something to be lived with, and grief in and of itself is a form of homage. You're showing your love because the loss is painful because of the love, right? And so to me, the trick is always talking to people about the ways in which they can take those feelings of pain and sadness, and instead of hiding from them or trying to obfuscate them, what you really want them to do is to embrace them for what they are, and to see that what underlies it is the love and the joy. And if you can retain that part of it and celebrate that part of it, then that, I think, is where peace and progress and forward motion can come in. And it's not about ever getting over the grief. It's about understanding what that grief gives you, which is beautiful memories of a person that you loved.
How does it feel? I've always been kind of curious. You know, I haven't had a real traumatic, you know, loss personally, but I always, you know, having worked with people that have and cared for people that are experiencing that, what is it like when everybody else moves on?
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible. 3 months after Carrie died, I had a family member say to my husband, when is she going to get over it? When is she going to move on? To where my brother was with me and stood up and said, she's not. That was her daughter. And that's not an expectation you should have. And you know what? That's okay. You're not supposed to move on. You can move forward, but that loss is there. You're not going to move away from that loss. That loss is never going to go away. So yeah, we can move forward by finding purpose, by doing the things that we do in the community, but we're never going to move on. They're there. And that's another expression that I hate, but yeah, I still, after 6 years.
Is it helpful for you when people remember those dates and
Yes.
call you up and say, I was just thinking of your daughter today, and we did this and we did that? Because I think a lot of people are very hesitant, like they don't want to rehash it. They don't want to remind them. And I've always thought, but I think I would want to know.
Yes.
So,
I do too.
yeah.
It's not for everybody. Some people don't. But I
Yeah.
know a lot of the people that I associate with, we do like getting those phone calls. You remember the kids.
To someone remembering your birthday or wishing you a happy Mother's Day.
Absolutely. Mother's Day is a tough
Right.
one, but that's why we do Bereaved Mother's Day at the Dandelion Project. And
On the same day?
No, Bereaved Mother's Day is always the Sunday before Mother's Day
Okay.
every year.
You get out in front of it.
So we go out and we celebrate the moms and we do a butterfly release. And then on Mother's Day, we send texts and we do, just little messages, hey, we're thinking of you today. Because Bereaved Mother's Day has become our Mother's Day.
Yeah.
How do these losses make you think about your own mortality? Do they? I mean, we joked about talking about your father's free plans, right?
Yes.
That's him. I mean, what about
He's going to
yourselves?
see this and probably get upset. I hope he doesn't. Well, death used to bother me. I'm not going to lie about that. It used to bother me a lot. The thinking of the mortality, the fact that someday we won't be here, and now I am confident that I will see my children again in the afterlife. So it doesn't scare me anymore. I'm not in any hurry to leave. There's work to be done, but I'm not afraid of it anymore.
It feels inspirational to me. It feels like the gift of opportunity. And, the comparison is the thief of joy, people often say, but comparison can also be a catalyst for joy, right? Like, to know that you have the opportunity and the privilege of being able to continue to do things and to continue to do work and to continue to carry on in the memory of people that you care about. It can be an uncomfortable magnifying glass, but if the lesson you choose to take from it is that I now have these moments available and they are precious and they are finite, okay, so let's use them,
I think it's definitely benefited me. I mean, it's definitely made me more of a planner. Like, I am very careful not to leave people negatively, like with mean words. I do always think I could die at any minute, because I see it happens. Your life will change on a dime, and that's it. So I'm constantly like, are my affairs in order? Does my daughter know that I have money for college if something was to happen to me? And that kind of stuff. And you really, because you see the ripple effects of death.
Right.
And the devastation it causes. And I mean, the ripples are just endless. Long after, even the tears have dried, that it can have an effect for generations sometimes.
Right.
And
It sounds like you kind of separate it. You've separated your, the want to be prepared and the topic of your own mortality.
You got to kind of just make sure at least you understand. If you don't want to make sure other people understand what you want, at least understand what they want if you're going to be in that position, because it does put you in a difficult position when you're having to make those decisions for people that you don't know the answer.
Right. But it's easier just to not talk about any of that, though, right?
Yeah, until it's too late and you're sitting in the,
So what do people do? I mean,
Well, that's one of those things where oftentimes the hardest part is to start a conversation, but really these conversations are an opportunity to set the tone of, we have a real understanding. It's also a chance to really know someone in deep personal ways. How often do you have the opportunity to have conversations about someone's deepest hopes and dreams and the way they want to be remembered? I mean, being able to have had those conversations and to have those voices in your head that you can reflect back on when the time does come, that's a really fantastic gift, I think. Right. And so, I had those conversations with my grandparents before they passed, and I did that because I had had the experience to be working in this industry, and having done that left me with so much understanding of who they were outside of just being my grandparents, but who they were as people. And I really loved that. And it was something that a lot of the family was hesitant around. And then afterwards, they were all gathered around the table wanting me to share every detail, because really it isn't scary once you've ripped the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, and you can stand there and say, oh, she would have loved this.
Yes, exactly. And you can say it
Be so
confidently.
proud of it, and-
yeah.
yeah.
There's no speculation. Take away all of the fear of making the wrong choice by letting them. This is also a form of respect, right? Let people make the decisions about how they want to be remembered, and then just have the opportunity to live that out for them because you love and respect them. It's just all part and parcel of the relationship, I think.
Difficult when you lose someone too soon, of course.
Or unexpectedly.
Yeah.
You know, it's much different having an unexpected death and having a death is imminent
Right.
due to illness. The unexpected ones really, and typically if the person's younger, the family's not financially prepared for that
Right.
kind of a cost. I know we had talked about your daughter and the huge amount of money it cost you, and most young families aren't prepared for that.
Right. Do you think they should be?
Well, it isn't morbid to have those conversations. You know, why wait until someone's your grandparent to know what their hopes and dreams are? This is an opportunity to have ever-evolving conversations, starting with really knowing the aspirations and the values of the people that you care most about in your life. This is a conversation that can happen many times in many different formats. It's a great space for you both to share with each other. It's not so much about the technical planning so much as going into the room confident in what they wanted their legacy to be. And that's something that anyone could define for
Right.
you at any point in their life, I think.
Do you think that, with your involvement in the industry and your closeness to it, do you think that if something, God forbid, were to happen to you, people would be able to carry out your wishes?
Yeah, my parents would definitely know, my siblings would know. These are conversations
have
that we're having.
regularly, yeah.
And it's great because, you know, you don't want to be having these conversations in moments of extreme trial and stress when everybody's experiencing pain and fear and somebody's in the hospital. I mean, I also had the unfortunate experience of watching what that did to relationships in my family as they attempted to navigate that. And I've watched 20 years of reparative work go into those relationships. And all of that could have been avoided if we had just been having conversations ahead of time. And I think that fear is particularly terrifying because of the consequences of it, right? Like the very thing that you're frightened of, you're often making 50 times worse by not facing it. And, you know, sunshine is the best disinfectant, right? Shine a light, and then there's nothing to be afraid of anymore. Nothing's hiding under the bed if you can see what's under the bed.
Yeah.
Nothing to be afraid of then.
See, we never talked final plans, obviously, with Quinn and Carrie because they were 18 and 26.
Right.
So those conversations never came up, not like they do with our parents or our siblings.
Right.
You know, my brother and I recently had a conversation about his last wishes, but like Quinn was 18. And so we had no idea, you know, we didn't know if she wanted to be cremated. We didn't have any of that information. She was 18.
Yeah.
Like, how do you have that conversation? But I think it's important that you have those conversations or you pay real close attention so that you know how you're going to carry on that legacy.
Well, and it doesn't even have to be a conversation directly with your child about whether or not they want to be cremated. It can be including them in a multi-generational conversation about the wishes for the people that they love and care about and respect. You know, if you're included in those conversations, then it's a very low stakes opportunity where it's not like a pop quiz where it's like, what do you want? And just having the courtesy and the respect to include people who you might write out of those conversations. I think a lot of families are quite insular, and maybe there's one or two decision makers who are sharing all of the information among themselves, but really a collaborative approach is not only a sign of respect, but it's also often the most effective way to move forward.
Well, Carrie was in on a lot of the conversations with her grandparents.
That's great.
So I knew that she would have preferred to be cremated. I knew what she would with her ashes and stuff, because she was, you know, she's like, well, you know, this is what Grandma wants, this is what Pop wants, you know, and so that was very helpful, but we didn't have those conversations with Quinn.
Yeah.
So that was those were difficult decisions to make.
I see a lot of like turmoil too within split families.
Yeah.
You know, the mother and father, especially when it's a young person, and what the final decision will be, who's getting what, who's going where, and it's painful to watch for those families because it's hard.
Well, in both cases,
navigate
they're
that.
step families. So it was, do we divide the ashes? Do we do, So
Yeah.
that was not something, we sat down at the table with the funeral director, and he said, well, what do you want to do with the ashes? And what do you mean, what do I want to do with the ashes? He's like, well, do you want to split them? And the first time I heard that was that a very expression
so
that you just did. And I was like,
I think of the magician
Right, and
cutting
I
the
was
body
like,
in half.
what do you mean split the ashes? So by the time it happened with Carrie, it was like, okay, I know what he's
Right.
talking about with this. But that was very overwhelming because that was not something that her mother and her father and I discussed. It, it was, yeah, okay, we have 2 guest books, and yes, we made 2 different videos, so you're going to get a disc and I'm going to get a disc. But it was the ashes, that was a very overwhelming question for my 18-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the kind of thing that it's almost impossible for someone who isn't a part of the industry to anticipate those conversations, right? Let somebody who knows what to ask come in and guide you, because then it is less jarring, it's less surprising, and it's also the role of people who chose this work because they love and care about your family's outcomes. And the more opportunity you give them to do that work in times that are not an existing crisis, the more comfortable those conversations will be, even when there is perhaps fracture in the family relationship that could lead to problems. That may even be yet another indicator that this would be a great time to have those kinds of conversations.
How would you, if somebody's watching this and they're like, okay, yeah, we need to talk about this.
Yeah.
How would you suggest someone broach the subject? I mean, is there an entry level, black and white way to make people feel comfortable?
I always lead with myself. I would just say, this is something that I've been thinking about and wondering about and am concerned about. This would be a thing that would bring me enormous peace of mind. They don't want a fight in their wake. Almost no one wants their passing to lead to a division in their family, but it is a thing that happens, unfortunately, as I'm sure we've all observed in our line of work.
That's pretty well known, right?
I think it is, but I think people want to think that their family certainly would never.
Mine's different. Yep.
Yeah, true.
And they are. They'll have different problems, right? So what you should do is serve as the catalyst, right? And starting usually with yourself is a great way of lowering the barrier to entry. I just think that you wouldn't be having that conversation unless it was something you were thinking about. So you go in and you just lead with your own experience and give people the forum to share their experience, and people will share. It's beautiful.
Wow. You guys have got me thinking. Who would I make it known to,
Yeah.
I work in the industry, obviously, but I work in pre-need marketing, right? So I'm not dealing with families who have just had a loss. I'm not seeing that, right? I'm not as close to it as you guys, and I've been fortunate to not have experienced it myself. But it seems like maybe it's something I should bring up.
Well, that's why pre-need marketing exists, right? It's because there was an observed need, right? The need was people are coming into these circumstances unprepared, and it's causing unnecessary emotional distress. And so being able to be aware, people don't even know they can pre-plan. That's the thing that I think is really tough, is because there's such silence around it, there's such silence around it.
Right.
Nobody is talking about the ways in which you can empower yourself and the ways in which you can be better prepared. And everyone feels better knowing they're ready. Everybody feels better going into something like this with a script, right? So if you can do that and have those conversations, nothing's ever harder than the moment it's happening. And so however hard you think talking about it first will be, it's got nothing on if you don't, right?
Well, and especially down here in Florida, because we have so many people whose family is elsewhere.
Right.
Did your neighbor know how to contact your parents? Mine doesn't. Or your children? No, typically not. So you have people that are very, very spread out now, and it's not unusual for, you have the medical examiners, people looking for a family for a period of time too, and because if they had planned, they would have a card, in their wallet that said, this is who you call, and then, the funeral homes have that. And I think it is peace of mind for people that are here part of the year, some of the year. It can make a big difference.
Well, that's the perfect example, though, because partnership is problem solving, right? And so the thing that people are most afraid of is all of the logistics and all of the problems that stem from this stuff. And so find partners like you who will support you when you have any need arise. This isn't just about the final destination. Of course, it's about knowing that you're working with people who are professionals, who you can trust, and that respect you and your family's needs and are going to bend over backwards to do what it takes to help you, because that's not only their job, but this is the kind of job that's also a calling, right? And you feel called to the work, and that's something irreplaceable.
It's not annoying to be on somebody's call list. It's actually what you want to do with your life.
Yeah, it's valuable.
Yeah, we all go through it. It's one few guarantees.
Yep.
Right. Well, I'm going to say that was all very, very interesting and even eye-opening to myself as I do work in the industry, but in a bit of a different role. I thought I would have known all this, but I didn't. So thank you guys so much for today. Thank you for your input. And again, thank you for your work.
Thanks for having us.
I want to put you guys up there with firefighters and EMTs, and I want you all in that category, or at least in my eyes. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.